Yo, what's going on, guys? It's GT3 and I'm back with another live commentary. This time we're going to be doing something that's a little bit different and probably something that most of you won't really experience unless you're really league racing. But yeah, this race is going to be sort of in the most extreme conditions. So we've got a thunderstorm at about 5 o'clock in the morning, so you can see the track temperature is really cold, the ambient temperature is pretty cold. So we're going to try and set a car up, the Bentley. I know it's a car that many people don't use, but we're going to try and set the Bentley up in these sort of extreme conditions, because you never really know, do you? So just try and do something a little bit different. Most people are pretty used to just driving in the dry, but obviously, especially if you're in leagues, you can sort of end up driving different conditions, especially if you're in like AOR, where they do get a little bit excited with the conditions and try to test the drivers with different conditions. So yeah, this is for everyone pretty much who wants to learn how to set the car up for the wet. So straight away we're gonna go straight on the wet tires, obviously. We've put the car back to default. I think I had a setup for Sugo that I was working on, which probably is why. No, was it Fuji? I had a setup for Fuji in the Bentley that I was working on. But we're gonna try and just put it back to default, try to just set the car up from scratch. In the wet conditions, normally the first thing I'll do, just looking at this page already, you know you're in a wet condition, so your brake balance, it's a little bit too rearwards for me. I think the back end is going to be stepping around quite a lot, but you don't want to be locking up, so you reduce your brake pressure. I'm going to put it to about 82. I'm going to put the brake balance to about 60. And let's see. Normally what I would do, I would normally run the front tire pressures a little lower than the rears, and then I'd make sure I got enough rear downforce to sort of make sure I'm not sort of dropping it into corners and the back end not stepping out into corners. So those are the first few changes that I'd probably make before even doing anything. Obviously as well, steering ratio I'm going to knock down, and everything else we're going to leave. I can tell you from now, we're going to be able to close the radiator down, because just looking at the ambient temperature, the engine's not going to get as stressed because it's really cold. So we'll knock this down as well, so about 35. Let's put our fuel up to the 95 litres that I pretty much, when I'm racing at AOR, always have. We've got our traction control there at 10, and we're going to leave it because we don't know how bad it is. And the power ramp, yeah, this is going to have to go up as well. And especially in the rain, you know, the higher you put the power ramp up, the less wheel spin you're going to get. So it just things that make sense are the general things that you would change straight away before even leaving the garage. But yeah, let's see what the car feels like. And also as well, another quick note, in the rain, especially if you're doing a race and the race is set to be wet, if you go out straight away in the session, then you're going to sort of get the best of the conditions, and the conditions will gradually get worse as the track gets wetter and wetter. It's not like P-Cars 1, where if it's just set to rain, then it just rains all the way through, and the rain's exactly the same all the way through. On P-Cars 2, the track gets wetter and wetter and wetter, so your times get slower and slower. So it's easy to make a setup right at the beginning of the session and think that the setup feels great, and then within 10 minutes the track's got more puddles, it's wetter than ever, and the setup completely feels atrocious. So I always think it's better to just wait about 10 minutes, so the track's sort of in the condition that you're going to spend most of the race in, and then it's probably better to make a setup off of that. I think in the past with AOR, when we raced at Brands Hatch, I was making the setup on the first 10 minutes, being really quick in the first 10 minutes of the session, and then within about 10-15 minutes I was about 2-3 seconds slower than the times I could get. So it's that drastic. So you have to be careful when you're making the setups. Make sure you stay in the session long enough to feel the track change and see where the puddles start to grow. So saying all that, we'll have a go anyway, just to see what it's like. I don't think I've raced in a thunderstorm before. Let's see how bad it is. I made it night as well, just to make it just that little bit more drastic. Why not? So it's pretty much, it's a car we don't really use, but we're gonna see how it goes. It's gonna be really tough to spot the puddles and stuff like that. It does look quite nice, the thunderstorms. Gotta be pretty gentle on the throttle. Tires are still blue. So I'd think turn 1 is going to be somewhere where the puddle will probably grow, because it's sort of off camber. But right now it's still, we've got a decent amount of grip. It doesn't feel totally atrocious, but I'm expecting that to get a lot worse as the session goes on. You feel the slide in there a little bit. And I mean, generally you want to try and make sure you've got as much grip as possible, which is why I left the tyre pressures pretty low. Because obviously the lower you have the tyre pressures, then the more grip it's going to give you, the slower you will be down the straight, and the more heat it generates in the tyre. So you're going to want to just put your tyre pressures as low. I should have just put them all the way down to the bottom, to be honest, because of how cold the track is. You can see it's really dark at this part of the track. Wow, there was a puddle on the inside of that corner, almost binned it. Traction control really helping us at the minute. Really hard to see where the puddles are. But I have got time progression on, so as the time goes on it'll probably get a little bit lighter. Definitely need to brake a little bit earlier for turn 1. I do actually like the Bentley a lot. It's just that they've made it really bad on this game. And as I said, I don't actually know why, because it's a, I say, a semi-competitive car, so not quite sure why they've sort of downgraded it so much. It was pretty good on P-Cars 1 as well. This is very testing driving in the wet. Very testing, especially when you can't see the puddles, but sometimes these are the conditions you've got to drive in. Sometimes these are the conditions that the real driver's driving, so but still, I would say, for me personally, this is supposed to be a thunderstorm. I feel like there's too much grip. I'd like it to be a lot more sort of tiptoey in these conditions. I haven't even tuned the car yet, and it just feels like there's just a lot of grip, to be honest. As long as you don't get on the power too soon, it doesn't really feel too bad. Now I know there's a puddle on the inside of that corner. You saw it right by the curb, just avoid it that time. Yeah, the car feels fine in the wet. We're just gonna have to wait for them puddles to build. Wait for the track to get wetter. Because right now it feels a little bit too easy, I feel, to drive in these conditions. We'll try and get the braking down a little bit better for turn 1. I can't even see on the inside of that corner if there's any puddles. Yeah, a little bit of understeer now. We'll go back to the pits because we think there is some things that we can change. So I think we can put that right down, and we'll leave the rears one click up from that. The brake ducts, well, the brakes just ain't really heating up at all, to be honest. So we're gonna go really low with those. How much wing? 2.8. We'll try max wing at the minute. We'll leave the camber. Yeah. Let's see if can we make the gears lower? No, we can't. Let's put the traction up a little bit. Traction's kicking in quite a lot. Yeah, let's see. We haven't really had to start pushing yet. So let's go to track and see what it's like. Hopefully it's a little bit wetter this time and not so easy. So coming up to the end of the outlap here, and I'm going to see how the car feels now. Normally what we're supposed to do when it's wet is make the car soft, make the dampers soft, spring rates soft, just to get that mechanical grip. But to me it all depends. I just pretty much do whatever feels fastest first before I do what is the right thing to do, because obviously sometimes things that work in real life that's supposed to work in the game don't always work exactly the same. So first I always check what is fastest, and then I check what is supposed to work, if you know what I mean. Much more turning with the 2.8 on the wing. Try not to be too aggressive when braking. Just make the back end step out. Lots of understeer then. Wow. I can't even see if there's a puddle on the inside of that corner, but I think I'm going to have to sort of try and avoid the apex there. And there's some understeer. Now it sort of feels like it's getting a little bit wetter. Really dark down this back straight. Bentley doesn't actually feel too bad, to be honest. And try and push it a little bit more on this lap. Wow, crazy amount of understeer. Gotta spend sort of a lot of time off throttle, just letting the car roll into the corners. I'm gonna have to take a different line into this one. Go much deeper into the corner. And there was a puddle on the inside there. So you gotta miss the sort of the first part of the corner and just pick up a late apex. See, that section for me, you can go way too quick through there than what I imagined it would be like in a thunderstorm. Here again, just off throttle. Just be patient. We missed a puddle on the inside here, but that will start to grow, I think. Not pushing it too hard through the last chicane. Try to make sure we get a valid lap in. Didn't get too close to the apex there. Didn't feel that too bad of a lap. Wow. See, we lost it on the way in. Just a bit too aggressive on the brakes. I say also, like when you're in the wet, you don't sort of want to be going into the corners and slamming down on the gears, because you just unsettle the car. It's not like you can get away with that in the dry sometimes, but in the wet you really want to be down gearing pretty slow. But in the way, it's all about just remembering where the puddles are. Like sometimes you gotta sort of program your, like when I'm driving a track, normally like Nurburgring, I've kind of got in my head exactly how I want to attack each corner, but you sort of got to reprogram your brain in this game, just because of where the puddles start sitting and stuff like that. So for this corner, you know you can't take the apex because there's a puddle there, so you got to just completely change your line. And there's the understeer again. Even then, I'm just, that's the thing I do like about the wet weather on this game. It is very unpredictable lap to lap. So 1 minute, like you'll have all the grip in the world, and the next minute, next lap, you'll have nothing. And so you have to sort of be on edge each lap. Got to be prepared for each lap. Might be different from the lap before it. You can see we slid into that one there. Already invalidated the next lap because we completely just cut the first part of that corner. Now let's see if we can take the first turn properly this time. We broke a bit late and we were a bit aggressive in the downshift, so let's see. So the car doesn't step out on us as it did the time before. But all the time just learning where we can attack, where the grip is. Try and brake in a straight line. And just miss that puddle on the inside. Didn't quite hit the apex there. We tried to attack it a little bit more, but it was just too much. I mean, there's another technique to driving in the wet, braking for corners. Normally you brake and start gearing down, but what sometimes I will do is I'll brake and leave it in a higher gear and then start gearing down. So I'll show you now quickly at turn 1. Just so you can't sort of, it doesn't unsettle the car as much. So I brake in 5th gear. I leave it in 5th for a bit and then go down. And obviously it's not as natural as what you normally would do, but sometimes it's just a little bit safer. I do it here again, leave it in 3rd. I actually managed to gain a bit of time doing that then. We'll try it throughout this whole lap actually. Just braking it and leaving it in the higher gear. So I actually took that corner in a higher gear that time. And we'll try it for this last corner, or second to last corner. And for the last corner again, and we sort of gear down on the apex when we've already brought the car to a slower speed. You see we end up going a tad quicker. Not that much quicker, but you can see there's not too much difference in the way not too much difference in the time, sorry, but obviously there's a difference in the way you're driving the circuit, and it might take time to get used to that, but that's sometimes a technique you can use to not sort of have your rear end sliding out all over the place and still put in half decent laps. But we'll try and make some setup changes just to make the car a little bit quicker. So yeah, let's go back to the tuning page. Now I'm not gonna lie, the car actually feels pretty nice. If I was setting the car up, I probably wouldn't have it too different from what it is at the moment. It feels pretty nice. It's not too jumpy when you're braking into corners. Easy to control. Like I would probably have the car pretty similar to how it is now, but if I was to just try and make it safe, I'd probably maybe drop the camber a bit so there's a little bit more contact patch on the track for the tires, but nothing too drastic. Again, like if it was P-Cars 1, slow bumps, slow rebounds, I would have the rear all the way down to the bottom. Not sure if it works as well in this game, but I don't know. Let's try it. Let's do what we would do on P-Cars 1. We'll take all that down. I'd lower this. I wouldn't have it all the way down. A few clicks up. Do the same with this one. A few clicks up on that. And make sure the rear fast bump at the back's right down anyway, so that's fine. I'd put the fast rebound at the rear all the way down, and at the front all the way up, so don't get any oversteer over curbs. The diff is about right, I would say. Maybe if I was being extra cautious, I would just put maybe one more on the brake balance. Yeah, I probably wouldn't change too much from that. I actually like the steering ratio at 11. It's a little bit slower than what I normally have it, but it's also more predictable. I'd probably keep that there, and we'll save this under a different name, I think. 2. So obviously, I'm not even sure what a good time round here is in the wet. Haven't done any wet races around here. I don't really have a reference, especially not for this track temperature and for these conditions. But yeah, the car doesn't feel bad. So let's see what it's like when them changes. And again, remember what you see me do with the brake ducts. Obviously you can see my brakes are on 4, which is probably the coldest I've ever seen brakes on this game. But in a race, remember you start with warm brakes, so remember that, because if you was to sort of put your brake ducts to 0 in the race, when you start the race your brake ducts are going to be very warm. So just remember to be responsible with how low you have your brakes. Let's see if them changes made any difference. Feels like a little more understeer, but a little bit more stability. Of course the tyres are still pretty cold, so it's definitely going to understeer anyway. I actually think first gear actually might be a little bit quicker out of that corner than staying in second. But what might be best to do is that technique of staying in the higher gears while braking for corners. You might want to mix and match that as you're going around the track. Certain corners you might want that for, certain corners you might want to downshift for. So it's all about just finding the right balance. I mean, I think the car feels better. I'm not sure if it's just me. But it feels like I've made the car a little bit more stable. Understeer, there's the understeer. Definitely seem to be quicker through turn 1. There is actually a lot more mechanical grip in the middle of the corners. Definitely first gear out there seems to be a lot quicker. Oh, we just ran a bit wide there. But yeah, I'd say softening up the rear of the car definitely made it a lot quicker. Definitely giving it a lot more grip on acceleration. Only thing is mid corner it is struggling a little bit with understeer, but for me personally, understeer in wet weather conditions isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'd definitely rather have understeer than oversteer when it's raining anyway. Let's try and have a clean lap this time. Sorry guys, just have to pause it as I had to do something for my daughter real quick. But anyway, let's see if we can pick the lap up from where we had it. Definitely feel like I can attack more with how the car is now. Couldn't really get to the apex, but it didn't really matter because we carried the speed. A little bit more understeer through that section. We broke way too early. Pretty much lost all the time we gained. We can definitely get on the power so much earlier. I'm still not actually sure if there's a puddle in turn one, if I'm just missing that apex for no reason. Missed the apex again. This time we were completely wide, so we lost a bit of time. Hopefully I can do this corner a bit better. I think we just hit the edge of the puddle there, just rotated our car nicely. Actually gained a bit of time there. And we completely missed the first part of that corner. Didn't actually lose that much. We did lose a bit there, I think. No, actually gained. Very weird. Whoa, we hit the edge of the puddle there. Broke early again there, but we just were a bit more aggressive on the curbs. 0.3 again. Went in there a bit too deep that time. You can see now the brakes starting to really heat up now, and I think that's only going to be for turn 1 and that chicane at the end of the back straight. But you can see the brakes are heating up, so you might have to just open them up a little bit. Let's see. So let's go and have a look at the brakes. You can see there they were starting to heat up, so I'm going to put the fronts to 50, the rears to 20. That should cool them down a little bit more. I mean, I want them to be warm, but I don't want them to be too hot, and then it will mean that you just get inconsistencies under braking. I do like the way the car's handling. I just wish it had a little bit less understeer. So we might push these up a little bit more. Push that up by 1, and yeah, won't touch anything else. And to be honest guys, the car doesn't feel half bad. I mean, I'll definitely have to test another car around here just to see how quick it is in these conditions. I'm pretty sure the Porsche will be amazing in these conditions because you can get on the power so quick. I think the only weak point in the Porsche at the moment is its braking, and I think that's the only thing stopping that car from being as OP as the Ferrari was before the patch. Is just its braking. I think lets it down just a little bit, but other than that, the Porsche right now is the car to be in. I probably won't be in it as much. I try to stay away from the fastest car. I really do try and stay away from the fastest car. It just ends up sort of being about one car, and I'd rather just try and see what I can do in another car. Try and bring another car up to the front. That's what I like to do. That's what I prefer to do. So yeah, but if you guys want some setups for a Porsche, of course I'll get it done. Anyway, let's see what this is like. And that's the thing about the Bentley, and that's the thing that tends to sort of get on my nerves a little bit, when the car feels really nice but it's just not fast, and you feel like you're ringing it, you feel like you're going quick, and then you see the times and you see that you're 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds off what you could do in other cars. It's kind of disappointing, and I just wish they just beef it up a little bit. Definitely the straight line speed is something that they need to look at, because the Bentley is a quick car down the straight, so they need to beef it up. I tried the Bentley at Fuji, where I've done quite a few laps recently, and yeah, it wasn't amazing, put it that way. It hasn't really started to lighten up yet. I think I set the time to real time. I thought in these sessions you could speed up the time. Obviously I was wrong. So let's see for this section. Be patient again. That time gained a lot more time, 1/2 second almost. Ready, late apex. attack that section much more. Didn't really get the perfect line through there, but we have to be more patient. Another late apex again. And we've gained almost about a second, so yeah. Seemed to work out. I'll attack that even more this time. Brake a bit earlier so we don't get as much sliding through this bit. But we've got the sliding anyway, but it hooked in to the apex nicely. Didn't get to the apex there, so we pretty much lost all that time. All the way in the puddle, and that's what getting in the puddle can do for you. Just got towards the apex too soon, misjudged the corner. And that's what I mean by once you've got a line, you sort of got to learn a new line for that corner. I thought I'd just miss the puddle, but sometimes, especially in a race, it's just not worth the risk. But if I'm honest, guys, I mean, the setup feels pretty good for what this track is. The only thing I would change, the only thing I'm not liking is just that little bit of sliding that we're getting. Just a little bit of sliding. And you want to sort of change that without changing the way the car feels. So don't be scared to use the engineer. This is when I want to make like a minuscule change without messing up the whole car, I would just use the race engineer. For me, I normally go to the car is turning too much when going through the corner, so I'll hit that and just make a small change. That's about it. So we were missing that apex at the beginning for no reason, because there's no puddle there whatsoever. Way more aggressive that time. Took a bit too much curb, slowed us down a bit. And now we don't have that annoying sliding going into that corner. We just run a little bit too wide. Didn't get enough on the turn in. We just broke too late for that one.
just looking there, I think second is a little bit quicker through there. Not too sure. Oh my god, I totally forgot about that puddle. Yeah, that quick. That stuff like that destroy your race in an instant. But I mean, that's what happens. That's what happens. I mean, you can also, like, when you're racing in the rain, you can use puddles as part of your defense. If someone's all over you, just give them the side of the track that the puddles are on, and if they're brave, they can try and drive through it. If they're smart, then they'll just stick behind. So a lot of little tactics you can employ in the wet. I think this car is good for 208s in these conditions. I'm not too sure how often you'll do conditions like this, but I'll share the full setup anyway, and hopefully get a lap in for you guys as well. But yeah, for me, the car feels really nice. I mean, the mistakes that I'm making are purely just my own, so yeah, feels pretty good. And I haven't actually drastically changed the car that much, I don't think. Well, I suppose I did change the dampers quite a bit, but it didn't feel that bad before. It just wasn't as quick. And obviously with these sort of longer setup tutorials, I'm going to be running 95 litres, which is more race fuel. So you got to remember that with the heavier fuel, the more it pushes the car down. So it might even feel better on heavy fuel than it does on low fuel. When you take the fuel out of the car, for me on this game, sometimes the car just gets really sketchy and just starts to just oversteer everywhere. So I do enjoy practicing with quite a lot of fuel on, but that's the setup, and hopefully now we can get a lap for you guys. So don't forget to like and subscribe as Cryptic TMG. Also hit the notifications bell. If you want more race setup tutorials, just comment and leave a message, whatever, and I'll try and get to your car and track combinations eventually, but I've got so many requests in a minute. But anyway, yeah, peace.